Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for another thrilling, stupendous, wonderful, and dare I say, emotionally compelling installment.
Oh my goodness. You're putting a lot of pressure on me with that, Sean McInnes.
Of Ask GameSpot. That's right, I'm Sean McInnes, you're Maxwell McGee. Together, we make one whole Danny O'Dwyer with our last names. Anyways, this episode is all about Dishonored.
Dishonored from Arkane Studios and Bethesda Softworks.
That's right. All right, so let's just jump straight into it. Our first question comes to us from Abbas Mishra on Facebook, who asks, so is this going to have guns to shoot ghosts or some magical weapons? We are all bored of using the same guns. Frowny face.
Well, I think you might be in luck with that one. They haven't shown too many weapons so far. I've seen a pistol and a sort of crossbow weapon, so at least one of those is different from, most of the first-person shooters you see out there. Both of them do have sort of a Bioshock-esque kind of patchwork, Art Deco kind of vibe to them. So even if they are the same traditional weapons, they should at least feel a little different.
Yeah, and it seems to me that the focus of this game is less about the actual weaponry and more about the powers that you get, which leads us to our second question from Guy Yuval, who asks, what superpowers have been revealed thus far? And also, is it open world or more like separate missions with a hub area?
Well, let's tackle that first question. I can say that they've shown off the possession spell. You can possess things like rats, fish, other humans, but when you do so, you don't just mind control them from a distance. You actually go into the creature's body, and when you're ready to exit from it, you are deposited wherever that creature may be. So in practice, you could say possess a rat, sneak into a house, and then leave the rat's body, and boom, you're inside the person's house.
Now, how effective are those? When you're taking over a dude? Because I remember in the old Hitman games, whenever you would kill a dude, sneak into his costume, and walk around his buddies, you couldn't really linger around for too long because eventually they would sort of get the idea that, hey, that guy's a little bit weird.
Yeah, you can definitely, if you possess a guard or somebody and you go off of your normal routine, it will start to draw suspicion to that person. They didn't take it to its natural conclusion, but NPCs did react oddly when a guard started running off of his path and into somebody's private quarters. In terms of other powers, they've also shown off the whirlwind ability, which is just a strong sort of force push spell. The teleport, which they use constantly mostly for mobility and transportation, like hopping between rooftops. And then finally the stop time spell, which is really neat because the guy, he had his pistol out, shot at our hero, he stopped time, and then just sort of moved out of the way of the pistol shot. Boom, it went right by him and totally freaked the guy out. So the style definitely is an open world like Far Cry 3. It's definitely, you have a hub area that you go back to in between each mission and then accept the next mission. And when you're deposited back into the game world, it's a confined space, but there are multiple routes that you can take to go through that space. So you may need to break into a building. You can do that by plowing through the front door, or you can, hop along some rooftops, maybe sneak in from the top and work your way down.
All right, cool. So our next question comes to us from Danny Martin on Facebook, who asks, how is the gameplay when it comes to sneaking around? Will it be Assassin's Creed-esque, or will it be a blend of several different sneaking elements? Also, what all types of approaches can you take to a situation in the game?
So Dishonored definitely has this blend of action and stealth, whichever one you want to take. They've always positioned it as if you want to go in and be all guns blazing, you can do that. It's definitely going to be a little bit tougher. If you want to go in and be completely invisible and sneak your way through and not alert anybody, you can do that as well. Most people will probably take a mix. I know when I played Assassin's Creed, a lot of that game was about social camouflage, blending in with crowds, disguising yourself. This game, it's definitely more pure sneaking, staying in the shadows, staying above, staying out of sight. You don't want to get in there. And if you're down on the ground level mixing it up with guys, that's because you're shooting them in the face, not because you're trying to blend in with anybody.
All right, cool. Next, we've got Metamania on GameSpot, who asks, exactly how much freedom and creativity is the player given for the missions? Are they free to tackle the objectives in any way they see fit, or are they given limited options?
So much like in the old Hitman games, there is a single objective that you're trying to achieve that's usually kill this guy or kill these two guys. And there are multiple ways that you can go about doing it, both lethal and non-lethal.
Okay. Next, we've got LOG-Sacrament from GameSpot, who asks, is there a character progression system, or does the player get all their tools early on? If so, is it based around gear, statistics, or abilities?
So I talked to the co-creators of the game, Ralph and Harvey, about this pretty recently, and we actually have a clip that we can run right now that addresses this very question.
That's handy.
So we have an economy around powers. Throughout the game, you collect something that we call runes, which are some sort of stones that are left into the world by the outsider, which is this figure, this mystical figure, and he gives those runes to you. Some of them are harder to find than others, so there is between two playthroughs, like of a player that is very into exploration and another one which is not so much into exploration, there might be a difference in number of runes that you will find. And with those runes, you can acquire the powers. Each powers have different costs, so like the most powerful powers will cost more than the weakest ones, and then you can upgrade those as well. They have two tiers of level for those powers. Like for example, the bend time you start with slowing down the time, and at level 2 you freeze the time entirely.
Okay, next up is Planeforger with part 1 of his series of questions, who asks, will players have a variety of options when it comes to assassinating our targets? Are there non-lethal weapons or options that don't involve directly fighting it out with them?
So one of the two co-creative directors has guaranteed that there are non-lethal ways to take down each target that will have story ramifications. I believe in the presentation I saw recently, one of the guys we had to assassinate he owned a bunch of slaves that had to toil away down in a mine, and if you go about the mission in a certain way, you can actually destroy this guy's identity and get him sent down into the mines to work with all of his slaves.
So you can do better than killing them. You can banish them
to a
lifetime of suffering?
Yep,
That
absolutely.
is so much worse.
No taking the easy way out. Down there working the mines.
That is awesome. I wish I would have had that choice when I was trying to be really pacifist in the early Metal Gear Solid games. Lifetime of suffering. That's great. Planeforger Part 2 asks, given the emphasis on player choice during missions, will there be any long-term consequences for how we choose to play the game? For example, if we are playing as a particularly destructive or non-stealthy character, will the story/game world/later missions change to respond to that choice?
A lot of slashes in that question, but I can say the short answer is yes. The long answer is they've been really vague about how this will manifest. They have said that they don't want any sort of here's a good and evil bar and you get good points or evil points depending on what you do. It's more subtle, more in how, say, the NPCs react to you or how your home base is even decorated.
So it's a little bit more under the hood, and it surfaces organically with how people are they might step a bit farther back from you if you're kind of a dick to them.
And it will change the endings as well.
Okay, that's handy. All right, next question is Dream Lover on Twitter, who asks, will I be able to switch between first and third person like in Skyrim?
No, unfortunately not every game is Skyrim, so you won't be able to switch between the two perspectives. You're locked into first person. I asked them why they went with first person instead of third person, since in third person it's generally a little bit better for sneaking games so you can see all around you. They said that they liked the intimacy and tension that came with the fixed first-person perspective, so you'll be locked in that realm.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really see a whole lot of first-person sneaking games.
Really, it tends to be a lot more difficult, because you can't see out your periphery, you don't know if somebody's coming up behind you. Definitely a little bit trickier.
All right. Now, one of our final questions is from everyone on the internet, who asks, is the game actually anything like the trailer, specifically that CG trailer that they released recently?
Yeah, so after the Dead Island trailer, where it turned out to be pretty much completely different from the game, people have been a little wary about all cinematic trailers. I can say that the trailer they've released for Dishonored is very much like the game itself. There's a lot of scenes that are pretty much shot for shot what it's like in the game. I know the main character at one point jumps down from a rooftop, stabs a dude in the neck. You stab people in the neck all the time in the game. He uses the whirlwind spell to blow through a window and he blows through a door and then runs through it. You can totally do that in the game. You can look through keyholes just like you can in the cinematic. The only real difference is that the pre-rendered cinematic trailer obviously looks a lot nicer than the in-game engine, but besides that, even the first-person combat that you see in the trailer is very much like the game itself.
It seems like the developer and the animation studio who worked on that trailer were sort of working hand in hand, saying these are all the things that you can do in our game, this is what our game is going to look like. If you could try to capture this essence in a especially snazzy way, that would be great.
It's a very believable representation.
All right, cool. Now, lastly, I swear this is our very last question. It comes to us from XX Naruto Fan 1963 from Pinterest.
He's getting older every day.
But he's getting ahead of the curve on the social networks. Anyways, Naruto Fan 1963 asks, Hey guys, big fan of the show, long-time watcher, first-time caller.
First time writer inner?
That's a lie in so many ways. Anyways, Naruto fan asks, hey, you know what, to be honest, I'm not such a huge fan of steampunk. I feel like it's overdone. I really think that they should have pursued another route. For example, a lot of the different varieties of punk that exist in the world, such as Tesla punk,
Atom punk,
clock punk,
diesel punk,
deco punk,
biopunk,
nano punk,
elf punk,
myth punk,
splatter punk.
Well, I mean, I suppose that's a good question, but the more I think about it, the more I'm glad they're not going with elf punk, because that would really steal the thunder from a little game I've been working on called Sean's Magical Elf Punk Adventures Part 7, The Reckoning.
You hear that, Arkane Studios? Original game, do not steal. But until next time, I'm Maxwell McGee, this is Sean McInnes, and this has been another episode of Ask GameSpot. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you later.